Hey everybody, this is Justin Williams here with Dawnlaser Games, and it might not be known to everybody, but I think it's assumed by most everybody that in addition to making games, we at Dawnlaser Games also buy other people's games and play them quite a bit. Like most gamers, I have a room filled with games, and everybody involved in Dawnlaser Games has a room or at least a space in their house that is absolutely filled with games. And this morning, I was very lucky to receive finally my copy of the long awaited miniatures skirmish game known as Stargrave. So I spent most of my afternoon just absolutely reading every bit of this book, and I'm really excited, so excited about this, in fact, that our first video that we make here at Dawn Laser Games will be a review of Stargrave itself. So effectively, Stargrave is the latest in a series of skirmish games by Joseph A. McCullough. Joseph A. McCullough has quickly became just the name in skirmish wargaming, and his rise in popularity is due to the success of Frostgrave. Frostgrave was his first, I would say, well-known war game, and it was essentially a new take on the kind of Necromunda Mordheim style, where you have a mix of wargaming and role playing jammed in together, such that you develop a gang or a crew or a group or squad of people, and they go up in level, they can die. And so you really care about these things. It's not about winning the scenarios. It's about, advancing your group and having a good time and in this kind of weird competitive role playing experience, right? So as the name indicates, Stargrave is in some ways a reskin of Frostgrave. It runs on the same rules system. But I think reskin isn't quite fair because this really takes the rules presented in Frostgrave and it cleans them up and makes them very simple to learn. But at the same time, there's a lot of complexity in this book as you build what you call your crew, your group of people that survive in this science fiction galaxy, and as they advance, right? So you can build very, very different crews in this game. So if you don't want to listen to the rest of this review, which I hope you do, but if you don't and you trust my judgment about games, this is the best $35 I've spent on a war game in a long time, maybe ever. This really presents a lot of creativity. You could run these, you could buy any sci-fi figures for any games, even very popular games based on movies, games that have been around for 30 years, and use them. And you will find a way to use those models in this book, which I think makes it very powerful. At the same time, I think this is the pinnacle of the series of skirmish games that Joseph A. McCullough has written. It started with Frostgrave. This also includes Ghost Archipelago. It includes Rangers of Shadow Deep. Having either read or extensively played all these games, I've only read Ghost Archipelago. This one has the cleanest rules. It could be that I'm biased towards sci-fi, which I am. But this one is the one that really speaks to me. So, if you don't want to hear my pros and cons and you just want to stop here, go buy it. So, in terms of positives, there are a ton of positive things to say about this rule book. I recently tried to teach a group of people Games Workshop's equivalent of this game, Necromunda. And Necromunda, I love Necromunda. I played it when I was 13 and 14. I played it with my friends growing up. But while it's a very great game with a great universe in which it exists, it is getting increasingly complicated. I think I now own 6 or 7 books, and I need to bring a lot of those books with me when I play Necromunda. And they're coming out with a book for each faction now. This $35 book can scratch that same itch with a more simple system. The rules are easy to pick up, especially for people who play role-playing games. You're using D20s. A lot of the same ideas are present in this game. And it's very simple to learn, and there's tons of complexity, meaning that, you can play different characters and get different things. Unlike the original Frostgrave, and a lot of other games, skirmish games, uh, all the options in this book seem very, very viable. So the way you set up your crew is you pick a captain and a first mate, and then you hire 8 other people who are less important. They're not quite NPCs, but they're more the equivalent in a role-playing game of torch holders, if you're aware of that old term. Like, they die more easily, and the people that go up level are your captain and first mate. And you pick from a couple different types of captains and first mates that you can have, and this was really difficult for me. I read through all of them. There's ones that are clearly psionic spellcaster warrior types. There are ones that are just psionic spellcasters. There are people who can build robots. There are people who are just kind of roguish and smuggler-esque. All of these options seem viable to me, and having played these kinds of skirmish games for so long, I'm not sure I'd say that about any other skirmish game. That normally there's a faction or a group or a set of rules that call to me immediately and I'm sold. I finally, when I set up my first group this afternoon, which by the way only took like 15 to 20 minutes, which is incredible, I finally settled on the ones I settled on simply because I could find a model that I was excited to play. Because I was so excited about all the different rules possibilities, I've just found a model that I never had an excuse to use and said, well, this person is clearly this, and in this case a rogue, and I'm going to play that just because I want to use this model. And having so many options that seem so viable, so equal in their in-game abilities, is just not something I've seen from a skirmish game before. If you own Frostgrave, Rangers of Shadow Deep, or any of the other skirmish games by Joseph McCullough, you already know most of the rules. You just kind of need to do a little reading, which is sometimes hard, finding the differences. But there are already people out there that outline those, right? That's a quick Google search. Or you can do what I did and reread it thoroughly, kind of thinking like, okay, this is one thing I don't like about Frostgrave. And then if you do that, my guess is that you'll find he's changed it. The few things I didn't like about Frostgrave, which I'll talk about in the next slide, he's changed. The most beautiful thing probably about this book is that you can roleplay anything you want in the sci-fi universe, and you will find a way to play that character, right? The rules, while there aren't many rules, you can build about any science fiction archetype and have a good time playing it and feel like it's a viable character, in my opinion. The last thing, the art in this book is amazing. And there are 3 different artists, I believe. You can check in the back. I would actually buy prints of the art in this book, which is really rare for me. I'm sitting in my nerd room. I don't have a ton of prints of sci-fi art, but I'm seriously considering seeking out a few of these pieces and paying the artist to have a nice printed copy. It's that good, which is why I would hold out and get the actual physical print book. Although those are kind of hard to find right now because of the popularity of the game, and you may be tempted to get the PDF, which you can. The art is just that good. It deserves to be tangibly held in your hand, in my opinion. I really struggled to come up with negatives for this game. Like all British published books, for whatever reason, yeah, I'm talking about GW, there's no index. But to counter my own point that there's no index, the rules are so well organized that I've only struggled to find like one thing, right, as I read through the entire book and set up my first crew. So the lack of index is kind of annoying, but to counter that, there's great online guides already. You can go to Osprey's website and you can get all the powers already made. The powers are the things that your captain and first mate can do, and you can just cut those out as reference cards. It's got a nice reference sheet that's found in the back of the book and in PDF online, so I don't think the lack of index is going to be a huge problem. One slight issue, I think, is there could be a little more representation of non-Western folks in the art. And that's not Joseph's fault. And the art, like I said, is amazing, but I'd like to see a few more non-white people, non-European descended people depicted. Yeah, that could be a thing. There are 1 or 2, maybe. But I wasn't like, oh man, this is, I can see a lot of cultures and a lot of different types of people in here. That's not a thing as I thought as I went through the book. One minor complaint is that it still uses D20s. And, I've been in the Frostgrave social media groups for a while and the Rangers social media groups. And Joseph always defends this. At the end of the day, a D20, you got a 5% chance of getting each result, right? And in this game, a 20 is a crit, which does +5 damage. In Frostgrave 1E, I believe it did double damage, which was kind of horrifying. But +5 damage if you roll a 20, given the nature of the game, pretty much kills most everybody, takes them out of the game, unless you've done very specific things. I've actually run the mat this afternoon. You can do very specific things to get your captain up to a health level where that's almost impossible to do to them. But pretty much everybody else in the game, if they get hit by a natural 20, is going to die. The other thing is unique to the Frostgrave, Stargrave, Rangers system is that when you shoot at somebody, you both roll a d20. Right, so the fact that you both have a 5% chance of getting any of the values and that you're both rolling dice each time a conflict occurs makes it pretty random. Some folks have changed the Stargrave Frostgrave system to 2d10s. This would take a bit of adjustment in Stargrave, because if you roll a natural 1 in Stargrave, you get an ammo click or a gun jam. So you'd have to come up with a new way to do that, because on 2d10s you can't roll a natural 1, right? The lowest you can get is a 2. And of course that would take the critical down to 1 in 100. D20s are random, and if you're not okay with that, you can adjust it with the dice and a few simple rules. I'm going to play it as intended with the D20s. That's the way I've always played with Frostgrave Rangers. But, for those of you, especially who've played 5e, Pathfinder, all these things that use D20s, you know how they work. Especially rolling 1 and then when you're shooting at somebody, having them roll a D20 can be pretty random. This is definitely a negative positive. But I've read through this book and I already want vehicle rules. So I'm hoping that on Joseph's desk right now, or even better in the hands of some editor or playtesters perhaps, are vehicle rules for this game. Because that's the one thing that I was like, this is great and I really want to play this, but if I could do Mad Max style, that would be even better. There's a couple hints in the scenarios as to how he's going to do this already, I think. There's one that involves a crashed spaceship that's still kind of automated, and it gives the crashed spaceship an armor of 20, but 1 hit point, meaning that if you have to really roll to hit it really high, but then you take it out. So I think that's a room for development in this, and I think bringing vehicles into it in an elegant way would take this already wonderful game and just make it outstanding, to fill a niche that very few skirmish war games have done well. A lot of skirmish war games, there's either vehicles or your infantry, and I haven't seen, in my opinion, and put down in the comments if you can think of one. I would love to find one, other than like old school GW game, Gorka Morka, that do the combination of infantry and vehicles at a skirmish level really, really well, and really accessibly. It's always been kind of a challenge out there. You have like Gaslands, which is all vehicles, and you have, other games, but the combination between infantry and vehicles in a skirmish game is always difficult, in my opinion. So overall, I really couldn't recommend this more highly. 9.5 out of 10. And this is, again, I should tell you, my history with Necromunda is long, and that's been a long love affair for me. Right. When the new edition came out, I was so excited. I bought all the softback books, most of the hardback books. I've played many games of it, several campaigns of the new one, several campaigns of the old one. So I only explain this for you to understand that when I say move over Necromunda, the new rule set of sci-fi skirmishes here, that should carry some weight. I think this book is amazing. I am going to start recruiting my friends who play miniature games immediately, and probably start recruiting folks who are less likely to play miniature games, who are more in the role-playing sphere, because I think this is so accessible. You can buy any science fiction miniatures you want that are vaguely human size, 28 to 32 millimeter, and as long as everybody's using the same scale, that's not really a big issue. I'm already eyeing a couple miniature boxes from companies that, I've been looking for an excuse to buy. Mantic has those Dead Zone Rebels box. I believe it's like $40. It comes with 16 a variety of models. Those would be great. There's just so many companies. I went to my shelf of miniatures and I was like, I could use this one, I could use this one, I could use this one. I already have 3 or 4 models that have never been painted that are going to get painted tonight, probably, in an effort to make my Stargrave crew. I just couldn't recommend this more highly. I probably, as Dawnlaser Games continues to review things, 9.5 might be the best value I give. So if you've made it this far in the review, please remember that in addition to playing and reviewing games, Dawnlaser Games also makes games. We've got two products currently on Drive-Thru RPG. We have Bases for the Weary Adventurer and Tower Beneath the Waves, which is the first in a three-part series of adventures for 5e. Bases for the Weary Adventurer is a supplement for 5e. It costs a whole $1. And essentially what it does is it allows you to make bases, places for adventurers to hang their hat and hang out. So please, if you made it through this review, check out these things if you like 5e. We have a lot of exciting products coming up this summer. We're really doing a push this summer to get a lot of exciting things out. So check in with us. The website isn't quite up and running yet, but it will be. So check that out too. And if you're into 5e, we've got two great products that you can check out. We'd greatly appreciate it if you did that. Thanks so much for listening to this review of Stargrave. Go buy it. Start converting models for it. Play it. Joseph McCullough, if you happen to listen to this, this is awesome. You did a great job.